The crystalline towers of the Galactic Council stretched endlessly into the purple sky of Nexus Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 distant suns. Within the Grand Assembly Hall, representatives from 47 different species gathered in their designated atmospheric pods, each one carefully engineered to support their unique biological needs. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire adjusted his forearms nervously as he reviewed the holographic data floating before him. The information was troubling yet somehow comforting. For the past 3 cycles, the Council had been studying the newest species to achieve faster-than-light travel, humans from a small blue planet called Earth. "The data is quite remarkable," announced High Chancellor Mordeth, her scaled hide gleaming under the chamber's artificial lighting. The ancient Draconian had overseen first contact protocols for over 2 centuries, and her experience was unquestioned. "In all our observations of the human species, we have found them to be uniquely peaceful among spacefaring civilizations." The assembled delegates murmured their agreement through various forms of communication, telepathic waves, harmonic frequencies, and pheromone releases. The humans were indeed an anomaly in galactic history. Councillor Crixtal, whose insectoid features twitched with excitement, projected his findings into the chamber's central display. "Our monitoring stations have recorded human behavior for 57 solar rotations since their first successful warp test. Not once have we observed military vessels, weapons platforms, or aggressive territorial expansion. The holographic images showed Earth's modest space activities, research stations, peaceful exploration vessels, and small colonies focused on scientific advancement. Their ships were elegant but clearly designed for exploration rather than warfare. Solar panels and observation equipment dominated their external structures, with no visible weapon systems. Most fascinating," added Dr. Yindar, the Council's chief xenopsychologist, whose translucent form pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. "Human entertainment media, which we've analyzed extensively, shows a species that has moved beyond primitive warfare. Their stories focus on cooperation, scientific discovery, and peaceful resolution of conflicts." The evidence was overwhelming. Human broadcasts showed a united planet that had apparently eliminated warfare centuries ago. Their space program emphasized peaceful exploration and scientific collaboration. Even their first contact protocols, which the Council had intercepted, spoke only of friendship and mutual understanding. Ambassador Veltar raised one of his hands, the gesture causing his atmospheric pod to glow softly. "What of their historical records? Surely even peaceful species have violent pasts." "Remarkably sanitized," responded Mordeth. "Their historical databases show brief mentions of ancient conflicts, but these are presented as cautionary tales from a barbaric past they've long since evolved beyond. They seem almost embarrassed by any reference to violence in their species' development." The Council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Throughout galactic history, every spacefaring species had achieved their status through competition, conflict, and the development of military technology that eventually enabled space exploration. The Zephyrians had fought brutal wars for control of their star system. The Draconians had conquered 12 worlds before establishing their current peaceful empire. Even the philosophical Kethamori had needed to develop defensive technologies to protect themselves from aggressive neighbors. But humans appeared to be different. They had achieved space travel through pure scientific curiosity and international cooperation. Their vessels carried no shields, no weapons, no defensive capabilities whatsoever. They trusted that the universe would greet them with the same peaceful intentions they projected. "This could be exactly what we need for the Outer Rim territories," suggested Commander Thacklon of the warrior caste Hegemony. His species had evolved from predatory hunters, and even in their civilized state, they maintained a military tradition. "The frontier colonies require delicate diplomatic touch. Human negotiators could establish peaceful relations with the independent systems without triggering defensive responses. The Outer Rim had always been a problem for the Council. Beyond the reach of central authority, hundreds of independent worlds existed in a state of uneasy neutrality. Many had rejected Council membership, fearing conquest or cultural assimilation. Previous diplomatic missions had failed because most Council species carried the unmistakable scent of military capability. Even when approaching with peaceful intentions, humans could serve as perfect ambassadors, agreed Veltar. Their complete lack of aggressive capability would immediately signal peaceful intentions to any species they encounter. High Chancellor Mordeth considered this carefully. The Council had been searching for a solution to the Outer Rim situation for decades. Traditional diplomacy had failed repeatedly, as independent worlds assumed any advanced spacefaring species must pose a military threat. Very well, she decided. We shall extend an invitation to Earth's government. We will offer them junior membership in the Council and request their assistance with diplomatic missions to non-aligned worlds. The chamber erupted in harmonious agreement. The plan was perfect in its simplicity. Humans would serve as the Council's peaceful face to the galaxy, their obvious lack of military capability serving as the ultimate diplomatic credential. Within days, the invitation was transmitted to Earth using quantum communication arrays. The message was carefully crafted to emphasize the Council's peaceful intentions and humanity's unique qualifications for diplomatic service. The response from Earth was everything the Council had hoped for. The human representatives expressed overwhelming gratitude for the invitation and eagerly accepted both Council membership and the diplomatic missions. Their enthusiasm for peaceful contact with other species was exactly what the xenopsychologists had predicted. They've even requested cultural exchange programs, reported Krixtal after reviewing Earth's response. They want to learn about our various civilizations and share their own peaceful philosophies. As preparations began for humanity's formal introduction to galactic society, the Council members felt satisfied with their analysis. They had found the perfect peaceful species to handle their most delicate diplomatic challenges. None of them thought to investigate why human entertainment media seemed to focus so heavily on professional sports, particularly those involving physical combat. None questioned why human civilian ships seemed unusually well built for vessels designed purely for exploration. None wondered why the human response to their invitation had included detailed technical specifications about their defensive capabilities. The Council had made their assessment based on the evidence they could observe, and that evidence clearly showed humans to be the most peaceful spacefaring species in galactic history. They were certain that nothing could challenge this obvious truth. The human diplomatic vessel Harmony emerged from warp space, with the gentle grace that had become humanity's signature in galactic affairs. Its sleek white hull gleamed against the cosmic backdrop, solar collection arrays extending like peaceful wings as it approached the massive space station, orbiting Nexus Prime. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark hair pulled back in the simple style favored by Earth's diplomatic corps. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Williams adjusted his research equipment, excitement evident in his movements as he prepared to document their first official meeting with the Galactic Council. "Incredible," whispered Dr. Williams, watching as alien vessels of dozens of different designs moved in organized patterns around the station. "Look at the variety of propulsion systems, hull configurations, atmospheric requirements. This is going to revolutionize our understanding of engineering possibilities." Sarah smiled at her colleague's enthusiasm. The entire human delegation shared his excitement about peaceful contact with galactic civilization. Earth's government had carefully selected their representatives to embody humanity's commitment to nonviolent cooperation and scientific advancement. The Harmony's communication officer, Lieutenant Janet Foster, looked up from her console. "We're receiving docking instructions, Ambassador. They're directing us to Diplomatic Bay 7. Thank you, Lieutenant. Please transmit our gratitude for their guidance and confirm our peaceful intentions." The docking procedure proceeded smoothly, with Council traffic control systems gently guiding the human vessel into its designated berth. Sarah noticed that their bay was positioned near similar vessels from other species, all bearing the same white and blue markings that indicated diplomatic status. As they disembarked, Sarah was struck by the thoughtful accommodation the Council had made for human physiology. The station's diplomatic quarter maintained Earth-normal atmosphere and gravity, with comfortable lighting that didn't strain human eyes. High Chancellor Mordeth herself waited to greet them, her impressive draconian form somehow managing to appear welcoming, despite her natural predatory features. The diplomatic staff had briefed Sarah on draconian body language, and she recognized the Chancellor's posture as one of respectful greeting. "Welcome to Nexus Prime, Ambassador Chen," Mordeth said, her universal translator rendering her words in perfect English. The Council is honored by humanity's presence. The honor is entirely ours, Chancellor, Sarah replied with a formal bow. Earth's people are grateful for this opportunity to join the galactic community. The tour that followed exceeded every expectation. The Council had clearly invested enormous resources in creating a truly peaceful environment where dozens of species could interact safely. Atmospheric barriers allowed beings with incompatible biology to share the same spaces. Universal translators enabled seamless communication between species whose native forms of expression ranged from harmonic frequencies to complex pheromone patterns. Dr. Williams was particularly fascinated by the Council's technological achievements. The energy requirements for maintaining this many different environmental zones must be astronomical, he observed to their Zephyrian guide, Ambassador Veltar. Indeed, Veltar replied, his forearms gesturing expressively, but the cost is worthwhile for maintaining peace. When species can interact comfortably, they are less likely to develop conflicts based on misunderstanding. The wisdom of this approach became evident as they observed various species conducting business throughout the station. Negotiations proceeded calmly, with disagreements resolved through careful discussion rather than confrontation. The humans witnessed trade agreements, scientific collaborations, and cultural exchanges all proceeding with remarkable civility. Your species will fit perfectly into this environment, observed Councillor Krixtal during their formal introduction to the Council Assembly. The insectoid being's compound eyes reflected genuine warmth. Your commitment to peaceful resolution aligns perfectly with Council principles. Sarah felt proud as she addressed the assembled representatives. Earth's people have learned that cooperation achieves far more than conflict. We've eliminated warfare on our world by focusing on shared goals and mutual understanding. The Council members responded with expressions of approval across the spectrum of their various species. Sarah noticed that even the more militaristic-looking species seemed to appreciate humanity's approach. Over the following days, the human delegation participated in numerous cultural exchanges and planning sessions. They were consistently impressed by the Council's sophisticated approach to interspecies relations. Every policy seemed designed to minimize potential conflicts while maximizing opportunities for beneficial cooperation. Dr. Williams spent hours with Council scientists, sharing Earth's research data and learning about galactic scientific standards. They've achieved things we hadn't even theorized, he reported to Sarah. Their peaceful cooperation has enabled scientific advancement that would be impossible for isolated worlds. The formal membership ceremony took place in the Council's Grand Assembly Hall. Sarah stood at the central podium, surrounded by representatives from 47 different worlds, as she accepted humanity's junior membership in galactic civilization. Earth pledges to uphold the Council's principles of peaceful coexistence and mutual advancement, she declared. We offer our species' unique perspective on nonviolent conflict resolution to serve the greater galactic community. The ceremony concluded with a traditional exchange of gifts, where new member species presented something representative of their civilization. Sarah proudly offered a collection of Earth's greatest peaceful achievements: medical technologies that had eliminated diseases, agricultural techniques that had ended hunger, and educational methods that had created their harmonious global society. The Council members examined the gifts with genuine interest and appreciation. Several delegates commented on the sophistication of human approaches to social problems that had challenged other species for millennia. Most impressive, noted Dr. Yindar, the xenopsychologist. Your species has achieved remarkable social stability without requiring military enforcement. This natural tendency toward peace will be invaluable in our diplomatic missions. Following the ceremony, Chancellor Mordeth privately briefed the human delegation on their first assignment. The Outer Rim territories had remained stubbornly independent, despite decades of Council diplomatic efforts. Previous missions had failed because the independent worlds interpreted any contact from militarily capable species as potential threats. Your species offers a unique solution, the Chancellor explained. Your obvious commitment to peace, combined with your complete lack of military capability, will immediately signal non-threatening intentions to these worlds. Sarah accepted the assignment enthusiastically. We're honored by your confidence in our abilities. Earth's diplomats are eager to demonstrate peaceful contact methods. The mission planning sessions revealed the Council's thorough understanding of human capabilities. They had correctly identified humanity's strengths in communication, cultural adaptation, and conflict de-escalation. The proposed diplomatic protocols played perfectly to these strengths while avoiding any situations that might require military intervention. As the human delegation prepared for their return to Earth, they carried with them detailed information about their upcoming missions and new technologies the Council had shared to support their diplomatic efforts. The partnership seemed ideal from every perspective. Dr. Williams summarized their visit in his final report. The Galactic Council represents everything humanity aspires to achieve on a larger scale. Their peaceful cooperation has created a stable, prosperous civilization that spans hundreds of worlds. Our participation in this community will accelerate human development by centuries. None of the humans noticed that their quarters had been carefully positioned away from certain sections of the station. None questioned why some areas required special clearance they weren't offered. None wondered about the occasional sounds of heavy machinery that seemed inconsistent with a purely diplomatic facility. The Council had presented exactly the face of galactic civilization that would appeal to humanity's peaceful nature, and the humans had responded exactly as predicted. The emergency session alarm echoed through the corridors of Nexus Prime, with an urgency that hadn't been heard in over a decade. High Chancellor Mordeth moved quickly through the station's corridors, her scaled hide darkening with stress as she absorbed the incoming reports from the Outer Rim territories. The situation was catastrophic, in ways the Council had never anticipated. How? Many colonies have gone dark? She demanded as she entered the emergency command center. Admiral Krexenak of the Hegemony Fleet stood rigid at attention. His warrior species' natural aggression barely contained beneath diplomatic protocol. 17 confirmed, Chancellor. 3 more haven't responded to communication attempts in the last 6 cycles. The holographic display dominating the center showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy's outer regions. Red markers indicated lost colonies, while amber warnings marked systems that had reported unusual activity before communications ceased. The pattern is clear, reported Intelligence Coordinator Silthak, her crystalline form flickering with nervous energy. The attacks began at the furthest edge of mapped space and are moving steadily inward. Whatever this threat is, it's systematically eliminating outer colonies. Dr. Yindar materialized beside the display, his bioluminescent form pulsing with agitation. The psychological profiles from survivor reports are deeply disturbing. The attacking force shows no interest in communication, negotiation, or conquest. They simply arrive, eliminate all life, and move on. The few survivors who had escaped the initial attacks described something unprecedented in galactic history. The attacking fleet consisted of vessels unlike anything in Council databases. Massive, dark ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their weapons reduced planetary surfaces to molten slag within hours. Do we have any tactical data on their capabilities? Demanded Admiral Krexenak. Commander Thaklon stepped forward, his scarred features grim. Limited engagement data from the Kepler-7 Colony Defense Force before they were overwhelmed. Enemy vessels demonstrate superior firepower, advanced shielding, and faster-than-light capabilities that exceed our current technology. The tactical display showed brief weapon traces and shield patterns from the Kepler-7 battle. The engagement had lasted less than 20 minutes before the colony's defenses were completely overwhelmed. Most concerning, added Silthak, is their apparent immunity to conventional diplomatic contact. 3 separate colonies attempted surrender negotiations. All were ignored and destroyed. This last detail sent a chill through the assembled Council leadership. The galaxy's political stability depended on the universal principle that rational beings could be negotiated with, even in conflict situations. A force that completely ignored diplomatic overtures represented something entirely outside their experience. What military assets can we deploy? Asked Chancellor Mordeth. The Admiral's expression grew even more grim. This is where our situation becomes critical. The Outer Rim colonies were deliberately positioned beyond our main defense perimeters. It will take significant time to move fleet assets into defensive positions. The Council's military doctrine had evolved around maintaining peace through strength demonstration rather than active warfare. Their fleets were positioned to defend core worlds and maintain shipping lane security. not to respond rapidly to distant threats. The hegemony can deploy 3 battle groups within 10 standard days, reported Kreksnak. The Draconian Empire can provide 2 more within 15 days. However, moving these forces will leave our central territories vulnerable. What about the member species with military capabilities? Mordeth asked. The Zephyrians are already mobilizing their defensive fleet, but their vessels are designed for system defense rather than long-range operations. The Kethmori Philosophical Guards are willing to assist, but their forces are primarily equipped for peacekeeping rather than warfare. The reality of the situation was becoming clear. The Council's military strength was designed around deterrence and defensive operations. They had been so successful at maintaining peace that their forces were unprepared for an aggressive enemy that refused to engage in conventional warfare. What about recruitment from independent worlds? Suggested Councillor Crickstal. Some Outer Rim systems maintain significant defensive capabilities. That's part of the problem, replied Silthak. Many of the destroyed colonies were independent worlds that had refused Council membership, specifically because they feared military entanglements. The surviving independent systems are now even more suspicious of our intentions. The irony was devastating. The very worlds the Council needed to defend were the ones most likely to resist Council military presence, fearing that accepting protection would lead to loss of independence. We need to accelerate our diplomatic outreach efforts, decided Mordeth. If we can convince the independent worlds to accept Council protection, we can establish forward defensive positions. This brought up another critical issue. The Council's military forces, while capable, carried the unmistakable appearance of conquest capabilities. Independent worlds that had spent generations avoiding galactic political entanglements would not welcome the sudden appearance of massive battle fleets, regardless of stated intentions. The diplomatic approach faces significant challenges, noted Dr. Yindar. Our previous diplomatic missions to these regions have consistently failed because our military capabilities are seen as threatening rather than protective. Admiral Kreksnak's frustration was evident. We cannot adequately defend worlds that refuse to accept our protection, and we cannot establish defensive perimeters without forward bases. The conversation continued for hours as the Council leadership struggled with impossible choices. They needed to defend worlds that didn't want their protection, using military forces that would be interpreted as threats rather than help. What about our newest member species? Suggested Ambassador Veltar. The humans have shown remarkable success in peaceful diplomatic contact. The suggestion drew immediate attention from around the room. Humanity's recent diplomatic successes in the Outer Rim had been the only positive news from that region in recent cycles. The humans are ideally positioned for this mission, agreed Mordeth. Their complete lack of military capability makes them the perfect non-threatening diplomatic contact. However, interjected Admiral Kreksnak with barely concealed frustration, they offer no military solution to the actual threat. We need their diplomatic skills to convince independent worlds to accept real military protection. Dr. Yindar pulsed thoughtfully. Perhaps we can use human diplomats to prepare the way for necessary military deployments. Their peaceful approach could reduce resistance to our defensive measures. The plan that emerged was simple in concept, but complex in execution. Human diplomatic teams would be immediately deployed to all remaining independent worlds in the threatened regions. Their mission would be to explain the situation and convince local governments to accept Council military protection. How quickly can we contact Earth? Asked the Chancellor. Quantum communication can reach them within hours, reported the communications coordinator. However, the humans will need time to prepare diplomatic teams for such a massive undertaking. The emergency message was transmitted to Earth immediately, marked with the highest priority codes. The message was carefully worded to emphasize the urgency, while requesting humanity's unique diplomatic capabilities. The response from Earth came faster than expected, demonstrating their species' remarkable efficiency in crisis situations. Human diplomatic teams were already being assembled and would depart for the threatened regions within days. Excellent, said Mordeth with satisfaction. The humans will prepare the diplomatic groundwork while we position our military assets for rapid deployment once the independent worlds accept protection. None of the Council leadership questioned why Earth's response had included requests for detailed tactical information about the enemy threat. None wondered why human diplomatic vessels were being equipped with unusually sophisticated communication arrays. None thought it strange that Earth's government had immediately begun what they called civilian evacuation preparations. The Council was focused on using humanity's proven peaceful diplomatic abilities to solve their military crisis. They remained confident that humans would provide the diplomatic solution they needed, while real military forces handled the actual fighting. The human diplomatic ships departed from Earth's orbital facilities with unprecedented speed and efficiency. Within 72 hours of receiving the Council's emergency request, 15 vessels had launched toward the threatened Outer Rim territories, each carrying teams of humanity's most skilled negotiators. Ambassador Sarah Chen commanded the lead mission aboard the Harmony, now accompanied by 4 additional ships carrying specialists in interspecies communication, cultural analysis, and conflict resolution. The fleet's destination was the Terminus sector, where 3 independent worlds had already reported mysterious ship movements on their long-range sensors. The Council's intelligence reports make grim reading, observed Dr. Williams as he reviewed the tactical data Earth's government had requested. This enemy force appears completely uninterested in conventional warfare protocols. Sarah nodded grimly. The attacking fleet's complete disregard for surrender offers and diplomatic contact represented something entirely outside human historical experience. Even Earth's most aggressive historical conflicts had included some form of negotiation possibility. Our mission parameters are clear, she replied. We need to convince the independent worlds to accept Council protection before this threat reaches them. Meanwhile, back at Nexus Prime, the Council's emergency planning sessions continued around the clock. Admiral Krexnak stood before the strategic display, pointing out the logistical challenges facing their military response. Our forward deployment is proceeding as rapidly as possible, he reported. However, we're facing significant coordination problems with the independent worlds. The tactical situation was increasingly complex. Several independent systems had responded to early warnings about the approaching threat by activating their own defensive measures, creating a confused mixture of uncoordinated military assets throughout the region. The humans are our best hope for creating unified command structures, noted High Chancellor Mordeth. Their diplomatic success rate with independent worlds has been remarkable. Intelligence Coordinator Silthak materialized beside the display with new information. We've received updated reports from human diplomatic missions. They're making excellent progress in establishing communication with previously uncontacted worlds. The human diplomatic efficiency had impressed even the Council's most experienced coordinators. Sarah Chen's teams were successfully initiating dialogue with worlds that had refused Council contact for decades. However, continued Silthak, several independent world governments have made unusual requests regarding defensive preparations. The requests were indeed unusual. Multiple worlds were asking for detailed information about human defensive capabilities, military organization, and historical conflict resolution methods. The questions seemed oddly specific for worlds that were supposedly interested only in diplomatic solutions. Perhaps they're simply curious about human methodology, suggested Dr. Yindar. Our analysis indicates that humans represent a completely unique approach to interspecies relations. Admiral Krexnak reviewed the requests with growing puzzlement. Some of these questions are remarkably sophisticated for worlds with limited military experience. They're asking about tactical coordination, command structure integration, and resource logistics. The independent world's questions suggested a level of military knowledge that seemed inconsistent with their supposed peaceful isolationism. However, the Council leadership was too focused on the approaching crisis to analyze this discrepancy thoroughly. The important thing is that human diplomats are successfully opening dialogue, decided Chancellor Mordeth. Once we establish communication, our military specialists can handle the technical aspects of defense coordination. The Council's military planning proceeded on the assumption that human diplomatic efforts would prepare the way for traditional defensive operations. Their battle groups continued moving toward forward positions, ready to deploy once the independent worlds officially requested protection. What is the current status of enemy fleet movements? Asked the Chancellor. The threat continues advancing steadily inward, reported Admiral Krexnak. At current pace, they will reach the first independent worlds within 20 standard days. The timeline was becoming critical. Council military forces needed at least 15 days to establish proper defensive positions, leaving very little margin for diplomatic negotiations. Perhaps we should consider accelerating our deployment schedule, suggested Commander Thaklon. We could position forces just outside territorial boundaries, ready for rapid response once permission is granted. The suggestion triggered immediate debate among the Council leadership. Moving military assets close to independent worlds without permission risked confirming their worst fears about Council intentions. The humans have specifically requested that we avoid any appearance of military pressure, noted Ambassador Veltar. They believe threatening military presence will undermine their diplomatic efforts. This created a frustrating paradox. The Council needed to position forces for rapid defensive deployment, but couldn't do so without potentially destroying the diplomatic progress humans were making with independent worlds. We must trust human diplomatic capabilities, decided Mordeth. Their peaceful approach is our only hope for gaining cooperation from these worlds. As the debate continued, new reports arrived from the human diplomatic missions. Sarah Chen's teams were reporting unprecedented success in establishing formal dialogue with previously uncontacted governments. The humans are achieving communication breakthrough rates that exceed our most optimistic projections, reported Silthak with genuine amazement. They've successfully initiated formal negotiations with 7 independent worlds in just 5 days. The success was remarkable, but the Council leadership remained focused on the military implications. They needed these diplomatic successes to translate into permission for defensive deployments. What specific commitments are the humans obtaining? Asked Admiral Krexnak. That's where the reports become interesting, replied Silthak. The independent worlds are agreeing to coordination protocols, but they're insisting on discussing defensive arrangements with human representatives rather than Council military officials. This development was unexpected, but potentially beneficial. If independent worlds trusted human judgment enough to discuss military matters, it might provide an avenue for introducing Council defensive forces. The humans have no military expertise, observed Krexnak with slight frustration. They cannot adequately evaluate defensive requirements or coordinate complex military operations. Dr. Yindar pulsed thoughtfully. Perhaps that's precisely why the independent worlds trust them. Their lack of military capability eliminates any suspicion of conquest intentions. The irony was evident to everyone present. Humanity's complete peaceful nature made them ideal diplomatic intermediaries, but also made them useless for the actual military crisis they were trying to resolve. We need to prepare human diplomats with basic military briefings, suggested Commander Thaklon. They cannot negotiate defensive arrangements without understanding fundamental tactical concepts. The Council began preparing comprehensive military education materials for human diplomatic teams. The information was simplified to account for humanity's lack of warfare experience, focusing on basic defensive concepts rather than complex tactical operations. This should enable human negotiators to understand what they're discussing when independent worlds raise military questions, explained Admiral Krexnak as he reviewed the educational materials. As the briefing materials were transmitted to human diplomatic missions, the Council leadership felt cautiously optimistic. Their plan was working. Human diplomatic skills were opening doors that had remained closed to Council representatives. For decades, none of them questioned why human diplomatic vessels had been equipped with remarkably sophisticated sensor arrays for purely peaceful missions. None wondered why Earth's government had requested so much detailed tactical information about the enemy threat. None thought it significant that human diplomatic teams included personnel with unusual technical specializations. The Council remained confident that humans would solve their diplomatic problems while Council military forces handled the real fighting when it began. The first indication that something was different came from long-range sensors monitoring the approaches to Nexus Prime. Traffic Control Supervisor Zeklar, a methodical crystalline whose species prided itself on precise observation, noticed anomalous readings in the human fleet's sensor signatures. Unusual energy patterns detected in approaching human vessels, he reported to the duty officer. The readings don't match our database profiles for human diplomatic ships. The duty officer, A young Zephyrian named Kevnal reviewed the sensor data with growing confusion. The ships are broadcasting human identification codes, but their mass readings are significantly higher than expected. Perhaps they're carrying additional diplomatic supplies, suggested Zeklar, though his crystalline structure flickered with uncertainty. 20 minutes later, the human fleet emerged from warp space in perfect formation. What the Council Traffic Control observed made their atmospheric processors skip cycles in shock. These were not the elegant, peaceful exploration vessels they had come to associate with humanity. The approaching ships were massive, angular, and clearly designed for one purpose: warfare. The lead vessel dwarfed the Harmony by a factor of 10. Its hull was matte gray, covered in weapon arrays, sensor clusters, and armor plating that looked like it could withstand planetary bombardment. Along its sides, enormous letters spelled out UN's Devastator, in the stark military font humans apparently used for warships. "Alert the High Chancellor immediately," ordered Kevnal, his forearms moving rapidly over his control console. "We have unidentified military vessels approaching the station." The human fleet consisted of 15 ships, each one obviously designed for combat operations. Heavy cruisers bristled with weapon systems, while massive transport vessels clearly carried military personnel and equipment. Most shocking of all, 2 of the ships appeared to be dedicated aircraft carriers, their launch bays visible through atmospheric barriers. High Chancellor Mordeth arrived in traffic control within minutes. Her scaled hide darkened with stress and confusion. "Are we certain these are human vessels?" "Confirmed by their transponder codes and communication frequencies," reported Zeklar. "However, their configurations are completely inconsistent with our human vessel database." The approaching fleet transmitted standard approach requests using proper diplomatic protocols, but their message contained unfamiliar terminology that made the universal translators struggle with accurate rendering. "Nexus Prime Control, this is Admiral Sarah Chen, Commanding Officer, United Nations Space Force Task Force 17. Requesting immediate docking clearance for priority military consultation with Council leadership." The transmission created immediate confusion. The voice was recognizably that of Ambassador Sarah Chen, but her title and the nature of her mission were completely inconsistent with everything the Council knew about human civilization. "Admiral," whispered Ambassador Veltar, who had arrived with the Chancellor. "Humans don't have military ranks." Dr. Yindar materialized beside them, his bioluminescent form pulsing rapidly with agitation. "The psychological profiles indicate this is impossible. Human society eliminated warfare centuries ago." Chancellor Mordeth made a quick decision. "Grant them docking clearance. We need to understand what's happening here." The docking procedure revealed the magnitude of the Council's misunderstanding about human capabilities. The massive human warships maneuvered with precision that exceeded most military vessels in Council service, their pilots demonstrating skill levels that required extensive combat training. As the UNS Devastator settled into the station's largest military docking bay, its airlocks opened to reveal personnel that looked nothing like the peaceful diplomats the Council had been expecting. The first humans to disembark wore form-fitting combat armor in digital camouflage patterns. Their helmets displayed tactical information on transparent visors, and their equipment included weapons that were clearly designed for actual warfare rather than ceremonial purposes. "Those are definitely military personnel," observed Admiral Krexnak, who had joined the observation group. "Look at their movement patterns, equipment loads, and formation discipline." The human soldiers moved with the confident precision of experienced warriors. Their leader, a woman whose armor bore the insignia of high rank, approached the docking bay's diplomatic reception area with the bearing of someone accustomed to command. "I am Colonel Amanda Rodriguez, United States Marine Corps," she announced to the assembled Council representatives. "I need immediate briefing on the current tactical situation." The universal translators rendered her words clearly, but the concepts she used were foreign to the Council's understanding of human society. United States Marine Corps suggested a military organization of significant size and sophistication. "Colonel," began Chancellor Mordeth carefully, "we were expecting Ambassador Chen's diplomatic mission. We don't understand the nature of your military organization." Colonel Rodriguez removed her helmet, revealing the professional demeanor of a career military officer. Ambassador Chen is coordinating with planetary governments in the threatened sectors. She requested immediate military support after her assessment of the tactical situation. This statement created immediate confusion among the council leadership. Everything they knew about human society indicated that military support was impossible because humans had eliminated warfare from their civilization. "I'm afraid there may be some misunderstanding," interjected Dr. Yindar. "Our analysis indicates that human society has evolved beyond military solutions to problems." The colonel's expression suggested she found this statement puzzling. "I'm not sure where you got that information, but it's completely incorrect. The United States Marine Corps has been conducting military operations for over 250 years. Her casual reference to centuries of continuous military operations was devastating to the Council's entire understanding of human civilization. If humans had maintained active military forces for that long, then everything the Council believed about their peaceful nature was fundamentally wrong. "But your entertainment media," protested Ambassador Veltar, "your historical records, everything indicates a completely peaceful society." Colonel Rodriguez looked even more confused. "You've been monitoring our entertainment and historical databases?" "That would explain the misunderstanding. Those systems are maintained by our civilian government for public consumption. They don't include classified military information." The implications were staggering. The Council had been observing human civilization for decades, but they had only seen what humanity wanted them to see. The entire peaceful image had been carefully crafted to conceal a military capability that apparently rivaled anything in Council forces. "How many personnel did you bring?" asked Admiral Krexnak, his warrior instincts recognizing the significance of the situation. "Task Force 17 includes 15,000 Marines, along with supporting air and naval assets," replied Colonel Rodriguez matter-of-factly. Admiral Chen requested a full expeditionary force based on her analysis of the threat parameters. 15,000 military personnel represented more combat troops than most Council member species maintained in their entire defensive forces. The revelation that humans could deploy such a force within days suggested military capabilities that exceeded anything the Council had imagined. "Your ships," observed Admiral Krexnak with professional interest. "They appear to be designed for extended combat operations." "The Devastator is a Nemesis-class heavy cruiser," confirmed Colonel Rodriguez. "We've also got 2 aircraft carriers, 6 destroyers, 4 frigates, and supporting logistics vessels. Standard deployment package for unknown threat assessment." Each ship type she mentioned represented military concepts that the Council had never associated with human capabilities. The casual way she referenced standard deployment packages suggested that this force was merely one of many that humans could field when needed. "Chancellor," Mordeth struggled to process the magnitude of the revelation. "Colonel, how many similar forces could humanity deploy if necessary?" The colonel considered this question briefly. "Depends on the threat level and deployment duration. For immediate response, we could probably field 6 to 8 similar task forces. For extended operations, significantly more with mobilization time." The mathematics were staggering. If humans could field 8 task forces of this size immediately, they possessed military capabilities that exceeded the combined forces of several Council member species. "Need to discuss this situation with your Admiral Chen immediately," decided the Chancellor. Colonel Rodriguez activated a communication device on her wrist. "Admiral, the Council leadership is requesting immediate consultation. Should I establish tactical briefing protocols?" The response came immediately through the device's speaker. "Affirmative, Colonel. Establish full disclosure briefing. The Council needs to understand exactly what they're dealing with." As the Colonel organized her briefing materials, the Council leadership exchanged shocked glances. Their entire understanding of human civilization was about to be completely overturned, and they were beginning to realize that humanity might not need Council protection after all. The tactical briefing room aboard the UN's Devastator was unlike anything the Council representatives had ever seen. 3-dimensional holographic displays showed real-time strategic information from across the entire threatened sector, while human officers coordinated multiple simultaneous operations with ruthless efficiency. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the center of it all, her diplomatic demeanor replaced by the focused intensity of a military commander. The transformation was so complete that Dr. Yindar questioned whether this was the same person who had graciously accepted humanity's council membership just weeks earlier. The situation is more critical than your intelligence reports indicated, she announced to the assembled council leadership. The enemy force is larger, better equipped, and moving faster than projected. The holographic display shifted to show the current tactical picture. Red markers indicated enemy positions that had advanced significantly since the Council's last intelligence update. They destroyed the Kepler 9 colony 6 hours ago, reported Admiral Chen. That's 3 days ahead of our projected timeline. High Chancellor Mordeth felt her scaled hide grow cold. Kepler 9 had been home to over 2 million sentient beings, and its defenses were among the strongest in the Outer Rim territories. However, continued Admiral Chen, our diplomatic missions have successfully established coordination protocols with 17 independent worlds. They've agreed to accept military assistance under human command authority. This statement created immediate confusion among the Council representatives. Independent worlds that had refused Council protection for decades had agreed to accept human military authority within days. How did you achieve such rapid diplomatic success? Asked Ambassador Veltar. Admiral Chen's expression suggested the answer should be obvious. We explained the tactical situation honestly and offered effective military protection. Most rational beings will accept help when facing extinction. Colonel Rodriguez stepped forward with additional tactical information. Our advanced reconnaissance units have engaged enemy scouts in 3 separate encounters. We've gathered significant intelligence about their capabilities. The display shifted to show combat footage that made Admiral Krexnak lean forward with professional interest. The enemy ships were indeed unlike anything in Council databases, but the human engagement tactics were equally impressive. Their shields operate on rotating frequency modulation, explained Colonel Rodriguez. Standard Council weapons would have minimal effect. However, our adaptive weapon systems can compensate for frequency shifts in real time. The footage showed human fighters engaging enemy scouts with weapons that continuously adjusted their energy output to match changing defensive parameters. The technical sophistication exceeded anything the Council had seen from their own military forces. Most importantly, added Admiral Chen, we've confirmed that their command structure is centralized. Destroying their flagship will likely disable their entire fleet's coordination systems. The strategic implications were profound. The Council had been planning defensive operations designed to minimize losses while waiting for the enemy to reveal weaknesses. The humans were planning direct assault operations aimed at achieving decisive victory. Admiral, interjected Chancellor Mordeth carefully, the Council's military doctrine emphasizes defensive positioning and negotiated resolution. Direct assault tactics carry significant risk. Admiral Chen's response was immediate and confident. With respect, Chancellor, your defensive doctrine assumes you're facing rational opponents. This enemy has demonstrated complete disinterest in negotiation. They respond only to superior force. The philosophical difference was stark. The Council approached military problems as extensions of diplomatic challenges, while humans apparently viewed them as tactical problems requiring decisive action. Our battle plan is straightforward, continued Admiral Chen, as the display showed detailed attack formations. We've identified the enemy flagship through signal analysis. A coordinated assault will neutralize their command authority while our supporting forces engage their escort vessels. Colonel Rodriguez added tactical details that demonstrated the sophistication of human military planning. Marine boarding parties will secure the flagship's computer systems for intelligence gathering, while naval forces prevent enemy withdrawal. The plan was audacious in scope and aggressive in execution. The Council's own military leaders had been developing defensive strategies focused on minimizing casualties and protecting territory. The humans were planning to end the threat entirely through direct confrontation. The assault commences in 18 hours, announced Admiral Chen. Council forces are welcome to participate in supporting roles. The casual way she relegated the Council's entire military apparatus to supporting roles was shocking, but Admiral Krexnak found himself respecting the confidence behind the statement. What support do you require? He asked. Primarily logistics and search and rescue, replied Colonel Rodriguez. Your medical facilities and evacuation capabilities exceed our own. We'll need those resources for post-combat operations. The 18 hours that followed provided the Council with their first real glimpse of human military capabilities in action. The efficiency with which human forces prepared for combat exceeded anything in their experience. Marine assault teams conducted equipment checks with mechanical precision, while naval crews prepared their ships for operations that would have required days of preparation for Council forces. Most impressively, human intelligence officers had somehow infiltrated the enemy fleet and were providing real-time tactical updates. "How did you insert reconnaissance personnel into enemy vessels?" asked Intelligence Coordinator Silthak with professional curiosity. "Trade secret," replied the human intelligence officer with a slight smile. "Let's just say we've had a lot of practice with reconnaissance operations." When the assault began, the Council representatives watched from the Devastator's command center as humanity demonstrated why they had become Earth's dominant species. The attack commenced with surgical precision. Human fighters launched from their carriers in formations that maximized firepower, while minimizing exposure to enemy defenses. Their weapons immediately began adapting to enemy shield frequencies. Overwhelming defensive systems that had proven impervious to Council weaponry. "Enemy flagship is attempting to withdraw," reported the tactical officer. "Negative," replied Admiral Chen calmly. "Destroyer Group Alpha, implement Containment Protocol 7. The Council representatives watched as human destroyers executed a maneuver that trapped the enemy flagship between overlapping fields of fire. The tactical sophistication was breathtaking, involving split-second timing and coordination between multiple vessel types. "Marine assault teams, you are cleared for boarding operations," announced Admiral Chen. The boarding operation that followed defied everything the Council thought they knew about combat operations. Human Marines penetrated the enemy flagship using tactics that combined advanced technology with aggressive personal combat skills. "Target secured," reported Colonel Rodriguez from inside the enemy command center. "Intelligence teams are accessing their computer systems now." The entire engagement had lasted less than 40 minutes. The enemy fleet that had terrorized the Outer Rim for weeks was completely neutralized, their flagship captured, and their remaining vessels either destroyed or fleeing in disarray. "Council vessels," transmitted Admiral Chen, "please begin search and rescue operations for any surviving enemy personnel. We need prisoners for interrogation." As Council medical ships moved in to recover survivors, the Council leadership struggled to process what they had witnessed. Humanity had just accomplished in under an hour what the Council's combined military forces had been uncertain they could achieve at all. "Admiral," asked Chancellor Mordeth quietly, "how long has humanity possessed these military capabilities?" Admiral Chen considered the question briefly. "The United States Marine Corps has been conducting amphibious assault operations for over 250 years. Our space-based capabilities are more recent, but they're built on centuries of combat experience." The revelation was staggering. While the Council had been admiring humanity's peaceful nature, humans had been quietly maintaining and developing military capabilities that exceeded anything in galactic civilization. Dr. Yindar's bioluminescent form pulsed with confusion. "But your society, your entertainment media, your cultural presentations, everything indicated complete peaceful evolution." Admiral Chen smiled with genuine warmth. "Ambassador Chen's diplomatic mission required specific cultural presentation. We showed you what you needed to see to accept us as peaceful neighbors. The implications were profound, and the Council representatives were beginning to realize that their understanding of humanity required complete revision." 3 weeks after the Battle of Kepler Sector, the Galactic Council convened its first comprehensive session on humanity's true nature. The elegant assembly hall had been modified to accommodate human military advisors alongside traditional diplomatic representatives, creating an atmosphere unlike anything in the Council's peaceful history. High Chancellor Mordeth stood before the assembled delegates, her scaled hide showing the stress marks that had become permanent since humanity's military revelation. The psychological impact of completely restructuring their understanding of an entire species had challenged every assumption about galactic civilization. "The evidence is now comprehensive and undeniable," she announced to the chamber. "Humanity possesses military capabilities that exceed those of most Council member species. combined with diplomatic skills that surpass our most experienced negotiators. The interrogation of captured enemy personnel had revealed the true scope of the threat the galaxy had faced. The attacking force represented the advanced scouts of an extragalactic empire that had been systematically conquering galaxies for millennia. Their standard operating procedure was to eliminate all technological civilizations before the main invasion force arrived. According to intelligence gathered from enemy command systems, reported Admiral Chen from her position at the military advisory panel, we prevented a full-scale invasion that would have overwhelmed the entire galaxy within 2 years. The captured enemy data painted a terrifying picture. The scout force that had terrorized the Outer Rim represented less than 1% of the total invasion fleet. Had they successfully eliminated galactic defenses, the main force would have arrived to find a completely helpless civilization. More importantly, continued Admiral Chen, the enemy identified the Galactic Council as a primary target specifically because of our peaceful cooperation. They viewed our diplomatic unity as a threat to their conquest methodology. This revelation had profound implications for galactic security policy. The very cooperation and peaceful coexistence that the Council considered their greatest achievement had marked them for complete elimination by an enemy that understood only conquest. Dr. Yindar materialized at his speaking position, his bioluminescent form pulsing with the complex patterns that indicated deep philosophical consideration. The psychological analysis of human society requires complete revision. We fundamentally misunderstood the relationship between peaceful, diplomacy, and military capability. The xenopsychologist had spent weeks analyzing human cultural data with his new understanding of their military nature. The results challenged everything the Council thought they knew about social evolution. Human entertainment media, which we interpreted as evidence of peaceful evolution, actually represents sophisticated cultural preparation for conflict, he explained. Their sports are military training exercises. Their games are tactical simulations. Their competition is warrior conditioning. The realization was devastating to Council psychological theory. Every aspect of human culture that they had interpreted as evidence of peaceful evolution was actually evidence of a species that maintained constant readiness for warfare while simultaneously developing sophisticated diplomatic capabilities. Most significantly, added Dr. Yindar, humans have achieved something unprecedented in galactic history: the ability to be genuinely peaceful while remaining genuinely dangerous. Ambassador Feltar raised one of his forearms to request speaking time. The philosophical implications extend beyond military considerations. If humans can maintain both peaceful cooperation and military readiness simultaneously, perhaps our understanding of social evolution is fundamentally flawed. The question challenged the Council's basic assumptions about civilization development. Their entire political philosophy was based on the premise that species evolved beyond warfare as they became more sophisticated. Humanity had demonstrated that sophistication could include warfare rather than replace it. The human approach offers opportunities we never considered, observed Intelligence Coordinator Silthak. Their diplomatic success rates have actually improved since their military capabilities became known. Independent worlds that previously rejected Council contact are now requesting human mediation. This counterintuitive result had surprised everyone involved. Rather than making other species more fearful, humanity's demonstrated military capability had increased their credibility as diplomatic mediators. It's a matter of practical psychology, explained Admiral Chen when asked about this phenomenon. When a species knows you could destroy them but chooses to negotiate instead, they take your peaceful intentions much more seriously. The concept was revolutionary for Council diplomatic theory. They had always assumed that military capability undermined diplomatic credibility, but humans had proven that the opposite could be true under certain circumstances. Colonel Rodriguez, now serving as the Council's military tactical advisor, provided updates on the broader security situation. Our intelligence analysis indicates at least 17 other extragalactic threats of similar magnitude. The Council's previous defensive posture would have been inadequate against any of them. The scope of the galactic security challenge was far beyond what the Council had imagined. Their peaceful civilization had survived only because they had been fortunate enough to avoid contact with aggressively expansionist forces. However, continued Colonel Rodriguez. Combined human council military capabilities should be sufficient to address these threats if we coordinate our efforts properly. The integration of human military forces with council resources had produced capabilities that exceeded the sum of their individual components. Human tactical expertise combined with council, technological resources, and diplomatic networks created a defensive alliance more powerful than anything previously imagined. We propose a comprehensive security partnership, announced Admiral Chen. Human military forces will provide tactical leadership and rapid response capabilities, while council resources support logistics, intelligence, and diplomatic coordination. The proposal represented a fundamental shift in galactic political structure. For the first time in council history, military considerations would become an integral part of their decision-making process. Chancellor Mordeth addressed the assembly with carefully chosen words. The council must vote on whether to accept this partnership and the philosophical changes it represents. The debate that followed lasted for days, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The galaxy faced threats that required capabilities the council could not provide alone, while humanity offered solutions that aligned with council values despite their military nature. The vote is unanimous, announced the Chancellor. The Galactic Council formally welcomes humanity as senior partners in galactic security operations. The ceremony that followed was unlike anything in Council history. Human military units received formal recognition alongside traditional diplomatic honors, while Council representatives acknowledged that their peaceful civilization would survive only through the protection of those willing to fight for it. One final question remains, observed Ambassador Veltar as the ceremony concluded. How many other human capabilities have we failed to observe? Admiral Chen's smile suggested that question would keep council analysts busy for years to come. Let's just say that human civilization includes many specializations beyond diplomacy and military operations. We've found it's usually better to let people discover our capabilities as they become relevant. As the council representatives dispersed to inform their home governments about humanity's true nature, they carried with them a new understanding of what peaceful coexistence actually required. Peace was not simply the absence of warfare. It was the choice to refrain from warfare when you possessed the capability to wage it successfully. Humanity had taught them that the strongest foundations for galactic civilization were built not by those who could not fight, but by those who could fight but chose not to unless absolutely necessary. The galaxy was safer now, protected by beings who understood both the value of peace and the reality of war. The Council's peaceful ideals would survive, but they would be defended by those who had never forgotten that some things were worth fighting for. In the end, the Council had learned the most important lesson in galactic politics. Sometimes the best diplomats are those who never need to use diplomacy because everyone knows they don't have to.